Wonderful. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Today we have two special guests with us from the Canadian Center Construction, the Canadian Center of, geez, man, I keep on getting confused with CCMC, which is the Canadian Construction Material Center. This is the Canadian Construction Document Center. So we have Mary and Eric. So Mary is the newest addition to the CCDC. She's now serving as their secretary, and while in the position of assistant manager, she works on best practices for contracting with the Canadian Construction Association in Ottawa. Eric is a former secretary of CCDC and served the capacity from 1993 until just recently. He's also employed with the Canadian Construction Association. So I'll let Eric and Mary talk about what is the CCDC. I think that's important because our topic today will fill in nicely to our conversation we had on risk and construction. It also ties in nicely to our presentations on procurement. It's also ties into Claude's presentations on cost and estimating and change management and controlling your construction cost. We know through many of the communities that we use contracts that are provided by the contractor. We know in other cases there are no contracts, and we know that in a lot of cases the challenges of having completed projects, especially when many communities pay out before they're done, is not really within the standards of off-reserve construction practices. And my hoping through FNNBOA is that we will be adopting many of the off-reserve practices, which is the leadership of the CCDC. And so that's where we wanted Eric and Mary to tell us about how well things function off reserve and what we can learn on reserve. So over to both of you guys, and I'm going to undo stop my video. Go ahead. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Maybe I'll kickstart. I'll ask, before I ask Mary to briefly introduce herself. First of all, thank everybody participating in this webinar. And I also want to join John for arranging this webinar. It gives us an opportunity to introduce to you the CCDC, that's the Canadian Construction Documents Committee, and our documents. My name is Eric Lee. I joined the Canadian Construction Association in 1993, and since then has been assigned to support the Canadian Construction Documents Committee as Executive Secretary since 1993 until I retired in April. And I'm glad to have Mary as the new Secretary of the CCDC. I'm still working part-time with CCA and also supporting Mary in her capacity as the CCDC Secretary for another 12 months. And there will be Q&A period at the end of the program. So we would encourage you to raise questions at that time or even during our presentation. Please feel free to ask questions and make it an interactive section. With that, I'm going to turn this over to Mary for her to make a few opening remarks. And at the same time, I'm going to share the PowerPoint. We did prepare a PowerPoint presentation for today, so I'm going to work on it technically, and then I'll be back. And just so you know, my Wi-Fi is not very stable at home, so I think I better turn off my video during the presentation, so to avoid any interruption. With that, and I'm going to turn this over to Mary.
Yes. Hi, everyone. So my name is Mary Gabriel. I am a new addition to the CCDC, but not a new addition to the CCA. I've been working at the CCA now for a little over a year. And as Eric mentioned, due to his retirement, I am now, taking over for his role. So I have very big shoes to fill. I do have a legal background. I'm actually a lawyer by training. And so I would just like to mention, if there are any details or questions or comments that you'd like to discuss in detail, my contact information is included in the PowerPoint. So if there's anything that you want to ask, maybe separately or discuss in detail outside of this presentation, please feel free to note down my contact information and give me a call or shoot me an email. So with that, I think we could get started.
Excellent. So I'm going to turn off my video now. My apologies, and don't think you need to see my face. So today's presentation, we are going to look at the just an overview of all the standard documents in CCA. And my apologies, I thought that I turned off my video. Did I? Okay, I think I did it now.
Yes.
And I'll provide an overview of the we'll provide an overview of CCDC documents. And we'll talk about the very briefly introduce one document, CCDC 23, a bidding and contract award guide, and a guide to pre-qualification, CCDC 29, and then Mary will talk about one of the CCA documents that I think you might be of interest. So with that, let's start. In Canada here, we are very fortunate to have a package of standard documents coordinated, very well coordinated. The owner, any documents between owner and consultant, it would be under the Association of Consulting Engineers of Canada, Engineering Companies of Canada, and the Royal Architectural Institute of Canada. For example, the ACEC 31 and the RAIC document 6, those are client architect agreements, standard client architect agreement. So that's an agreement form, any documents between the owner and consultant. You can find standard forms from ACEC and RAIC family. Any documents relating to owners and contractors, that would be the Canadian Construction Documents Committee. That would be the focus of today's presentation. And any documents relating to contractors and subcontractors, those would be under the CCA, the Canadian Construction Association documents. The flagship document, the CCA 1, that's the stipulated price subcontract. So that's in Canada here, where everything is well coordinated. As an owner, you could, for example, if you're hiring a consultant, you could use, if it's an architect, you could use the RAIC document 6, the client architect agreement, or you can use ACEC 31, the client consultant agreement. And when you hire a contractor, you can use CCDC 2, for example, one of our flagship document, that's the stipulated price contract, CCDC 2. And the contractor, in turn, will use CCA 1, that's the stipulated price subcontract. And all these contracts, they are very well coordinated. The terms, the roles, and responsibilities are all very well coordinated. So if you are using your in-house contracts, I want to remind you, just be very careful. Make sure that all the documents are coordinated. For example, when you hire an architect for your site, for your project, did you specify, for example, the frequency for that architect to visit the job site? That's addressed in your client architect agreement. And similarly, you're telling the contractor, the consultant's frequency in visiting the job site, they need to be the same. Otherwise, if there's any discrepancy, you'll be stuck in the middle. Okay, so consistency is very important. So if you use all these standard documents, they are well coordinated. They won't have any conflict. If you are developing your own, just make sure that you review and coordinate all the conditions. All right. CCDC, what is CCDC? CCDC is it's just a joint committee. It is a working committee, consists of 18 members, 4 owners, 2 public, 2 private. For example, the public owners right now that we have the Alberta University. There's a manager, project manager for from the Alberta University, and the Defense Construction Canada. We got their vice president currently sitting at the CCDC, and we got 2 private owners. We got 3 representatives from the Association of Consulting Engineering Companies of Canada, 4 from Construction Association, 3 from Construction Specifications Canada, and 3 from the Royal Architectural Institute of Canada. And we also have 1 legal counsel. So he's providing feedback on the use of the documents in the industry. In a nutshell, this is CCDC. The CCDC is operating on a consensus basis. Everybody have the same right, all the members have the same right and authority within the committee. And we got 4 constituent associations because we don't have any national owner associations stepping up to be a constituent association. So we only have 4 right now: ACEC, RAI, CCCA, and CSC. All CCDC documents are approved by all the CCDC members and are by all 4 constituent member associations: ACEC, CCA, CSC, and RAIC. So that's in a nutshell what is CCDC. So I'm now going into talking about the different project delivery methods. I know from talking to John that most of the participants, I believe, are more familiar with the design bid build. So in a design bid build, in a nutshell, the owner will hire the consultant for design services. That would include the design, that would include their assistance and advice during the bidding stage, and also as the contract administrator during the construction phase. And once the design is complete, the owner will hire the general contractor, for example, using CCDC2 as a contractor, and for construction services. So the general contractor is responsible for the construction work, is responsible for performing the construction work in accordance with the drawings and specifications provided by the owner, prepared by the consultant. So the general contractor in turn might hire subcontractor, consultant might hire sub-consultants. They will use the ACEC, RAIC documents or CCA documents for that purpose. So the design bid build basically are 3 very specific steps. One is the design phase, during which the owner will work with the consultant to finalize the design, to develop the design. Once the drawings and specs are ready, they would go into the bidding stage. The bidding stage, they would put out the drawings and specs for and invite the contractor to bid for the project. That's the bidding stage. Once that's done and a contractor is selected, then they enter into a construction contract. That's the build stage. So it's a 3 different stage, and there are separate responsibilities for design and construction. Very, very clear. Consultant is responsible for design. Contractor is responsible for construction work or workmanship. So if anything fails as an owner, because there is a separate responsibilities, that means you need to find out and determine who is responsible. Is it a design error or is it a workmanship issue? If it's a design error, then the owner need to go after the consultant using the client consultant agreement. Or if it is a workmanship issue, then the owner will make a claim against the contractor under the construction contract. So it is a separate responsibilities for design and construction. It's a sequential linear process. So that means it takes a longer time to complete than other methods, because you need to complete the design before you can put it out for bidding, before you can start construction work, a linear stage. And one of the common issue about the design bid build is the completeness or the of the design package, whether or not they are complete and whether there's any issues relating to design, because if there's any inconsistency or incompleteness in the design documents, what might end up happen would be a change in the construction contract. That means it's extras, scope changes, and pricing. It's a major issue for using design bid build project. So the most common one are CCDC 2 stipulated price contract. The master agreement basically is an agreement that you would sign with a contractor. So within, for example, a 3-year, 5 years term, you would issue work order, and they would perform the construction work. You don't need to sign another contract. You just need to issue a work order for the work. So it's good for if you are using contractors for multiple contracts within a certain time, then that would be CCDC 2 master agreement would be suitable. CCDC 3 is cost plus contract, 4 is unit price contract, 18 is civil works contract. So those are typical design bid build contracts. Any questions? Please, if you have any question, please send it to in the chat, and I will answer that. I'm going to very quickly. I know that from discussion with John that design build and construction management might not be as popular within the First Nations communities, but it is very commonly used in the construction industry. And so I'm going to introduce you to a very brief overview on design build and construction management. Under the design build project, the owner will hire one entity. It's called the design builder. And the design builder will be responsible for both the design and construction. So it's a single source of responsibility. They will sign CCDC 14. And the design builder will in turn hire a consultant and trade contractors. They will hire consultant for design. They will hire trade contractors to perform construction work. But from your perspective as an owner, you are entering into one single contract with a design builder. And the design builder is responsible for the design and construction. If you remember in a design bid build project, I was saying that if an issue comes up, you need to determine whether it's a design error or whether it's a construction workmanship issue. In design build, that's gone, because it doesn't matter whether it's a design error or workmanship issue. It's the design builder's responsibility. They need to fix it. So that's in essence, that's the design build project delivery method. In terms of the phases, the first phase for design build project is for the owner to develop what we call an owner statement of requirement. The owner statement of requirement can vary. For example, for myself, I'm not very experienced I have no experience in construction work, but I got the money. I want to open a hotel. So I might have a lunch meeting with a design builder. I might put a scratch on draw a picture on a napkin, and that might be my requirement for the hotel. Or I might say, I want a 5-star hotel. I want a hotel 4 stories, have 20 rooms. That type of very high level requirements. So that's owner statement of requirements. For more sophisticated owners, they might even have the floor plan. They might even have the functional requirements and more details. So the owner statement of requirements basically is the one that you imposed by you. That's what you want for the project. And everything else, there would be flexibility. You would allow the design builder to come up with innovative idea to make it more economic, to make it more functional. So that's in the essence, the design build project. Some of the characters of design build project is because of the overlapping of design and construction. So design build, one of the benefits is fast tracking. That means it would be shorter time because you don't need to wait until design complete. The design builder is the one controlling. So he is going to have meeting with designers and contractors and they would understand what needs to be done first. Before you complete the whole design, they might have completed the foundation. So the foundation contractor can start to work without waiting for the complete design. So it's not like for design build project that you shorten the design or construction phase to fast track the project. It's the overlapping between the design phase and the construction phase that allow the project to be fast tracked, to be able to complete quicker. Another reason for owners to like to use design build is the single source of responsibility. We talked about that already. And the selection of design build mostly are done by best value. And the procurement can be by negotiation, or we call it the request for qualification, or we call request for proposals. So instead of inviting for bids, which is just the price, the contract price, you are asking the design builder to come up with some preliminary design, some ideas, design ideas. And so it's a proposal. It would be a design and the price as well. So it's more than a bid. And the owner might decide to, particularly if it is one of your first few projects, you might want to engage, we call it the owner's advisor, to help you to develop the owner's statement of requirement, to help you through the proposal, the RFQ and RFP stage, and to administer the design build contract. So those are the options. But one big benefit that I highly recommend you, if you are looking for fast tracking, not necessary. Design build is not necessary the best, because there are other methods that would be able to fast track as well. But design build has one distinct advantage, is innovation, because now you are going to get proposals from different design build teams during the proposal stage. So you might be surprised with the proposals that you receive from the design build teams. So this, in a nutshell, the design build process. The other one that's very commonly used is, we call it construction management. There are two types of construction management. One, we call it construction management for services, during which the owner will hire the consultant for design services. The owner will hire a construction manager who will be acting as your advisor. And you will be signing construction contract with different trade contractors. So maybe in a simple term, you will be acting as a general contractor. However, you will be getting a support by a general contractor who is the construction manager, helping you to manage all those trade contracts. So the construction manager, in this case, they are just an advisors. They provide pre-construction services, which include, during the design phase, they would provide the budgeting advisors, scheduling advisors, and constructability advisors. They will work with the consultants to improve their design, value engineering, to make it more practical and more economic for you. That's the, during the design phase, that's their services. During the proposal, during the bidding stage, they will prepare the bid packages for you to put out to tender, invite tenders from trade contractors. That's during the bidding stage. And during the construction stage, they will be the one administering all the construction contract on your behalf. So in this situation, basically, you are having, in addition to has a consultant as your advisor, you are having a general contractor supporting you as well, providing you advices, and you are entering into construction contract with all the trade contractors directly. And this, we call it construction management for services. The key here is the CM is not responsible for construction work. They are just an advisor. All right. And then the other type is, we call it construction management for services and work, in which the owner will hire the consultant for design services, the same thing as the CM for services. The owner will hire the construction manager for CM services. For example, pre-construction services like scheduling, budgeting, and constructability would be exactly the same as CCDC 5A. The only difference is under CCDC 5B, when construction start, the construction manager now will become the contractor, or you could say a cost plus contractor. So they will be hiring subcontractor. So you are only, as an owner, you only sign CCDC 5B with a construction manager. You are not signing any contract with other contractors. Those contractors will be subcontractor under construction manager. The CM services and work is more common in the West Province, like BC and Alberta. Mostly are CM for services and work, because most contractors in these provinces, they want to be involved in the construction work. They don't want to be just an advisor. CM for services is more popular in the Atlantic region. There are quite a few construction management firms that are happy to be an advisor. And Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan is a kind of half-half. That's in a nutshell. I mean, that's my experience in terms of, that's what I heard. That's what I've been from talking to different people. So in Ontario, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan, it's half-half, half using CM for services, half using CM for services and work. So that major difference between these two methods, I just want to summarize, is the construction management. The construction manager, if you're signing 5A, they are not responsible for construction work. If they sign 5B, they are responsible for construction for construction work. And from owner's perspective, it's very easy. If you are required to sign contract with each of the trade contractors, that means you should be using CCDC 5A model here. You sign CCDC 17 with each trade contractor. But if you are signing only one construction contract with the construction manager, CCDC 5B in this case, then you are using the 5B model. So in a nutshell, this is construction management. So design build and construction management are the two most popular, other than design bid build, CCDC 2. There are other contracts like CCDC 30. That's the integrated project delivery. Very complicated multi-party contract, which basically use contract terms to force the parties to collaborate. So it's a very, very new, it's very, very different. And we also just published a new consulting engineers contract between owners and consultants. It's CCDC 31. Just so you know, those are the other contracts that we are in the work. And there are other types of CCDC documents. The other type that I would like to mention is master specifications. Again, very, very new. And I highly recommend you to, if you don't have your own master specifications for bidding, for the bidding stage or for contract requirement, general requirements, you should highly recommend you to take a look on those divisions and develop one based on this, or use this. These are editable templates that you can use, very detailed documents. Highly recommend. I know that you might not be yourself personally involved, but please ask questions to those in your organization that might be responsible for writing specifications, or even consultants. Make sure that they make reference to these documents. They are very, very good information. All right, I highly recommend you. The other types of documents, CCDC documents, we call it the standard forms. CCDC 9A and 9B are statutory declaration. Basically, it's something that you might require your general contractor, or the general contractor might require their trade contractor to submit a statutory declaration on a monthly basis, declaring that the money that they receive, they have distributed down the contractual chain. This is just one way to ensure transparency with the cash flow down the contractual chain. All right, CCDC 11 is a standard pre-qualification statement form. It is very standard. Later on, we talk about, I'll have a couple slides on CCDC 29, which is a guide to pre-qualifications. We can maybe get back to this, but pre-qualification statement, CCDC 11, is just a very basic So doesn't matter what pre-qualification process you use, these are the basic questions that you should ask. And CCDC 12 is just a standard form for the contractor to ask information relating to project financing. All right, so these are standard forms that we publish. And we also publish a few guide documents. CCDC 23 is a guide to calling bids and awarding construction contracts. I'll touch on that in the next slide. CCDC 10 is a guide to construction project delivery method. So pretty much I gave a very brief overview on the project delivery methods today already. CCDC 21 is a guide to construction insurance. 22, a guide to construction surety. Very good information relating to insurance and surety, particularly for people like myself that's not necessarily familiar with the insurance and surety industry or their products. This is a very useful document, a lot of good information. And 24 is just administrative support documents that contain, for example, templates for payment certificate, template for application for payment. It's just template for a lot of the administrative support documents. And 29 is a guide to pre-qualification. So I will have a couple slides to go through that after this slide. And we also have a few guides to the use of contract forms as well. CCDC 23 is a, how do I put it? CCDC 2 is the flagship document of CCDC, the stipulated price contract. We sold over 20,000 copies per year. And CCDC 23 is another flagship document. It is a guide document that provides advices that helped you through the bidding stage, that helped you from calling bids, reviewing the bids, and awarding construction contracts. Because of the time limitation, I can't go into the details, but you can see from the table of contents, introduction and definitions, competitive bidding, the bid documents, calling for bids, receiving bids, and awarding the contract. We follow the Canadian law, construction law very closely. Things that we recommend, for example, whether or when the privilege clause is required, that type of discussions are all in CCDC 23. A very useful document if you are the procurement authority that need to put out a bid or invited for tender. CCDC 23 is a very useful document. For myself, two flagship documents of CCDC. One is CCDC 2, the other is CCDC 23. Are very useful documents. I welcome any questions. Maybe that's the most efficient way in doing the presentation, rather than trying to go through the whole document. So if you have any questions relating the bidding, relating CCDC 23, any questions during the bidding period or anything relating to the bidding process, I would be happy to answer during the Q&A period. And CCDC 29 is another document. It's a guide to pre-qualification. The first question people ask about pre-qualification is, why do you want to pre-qualify? Why would an owner want to pre-qualify contractor? So here are the most common reasons. Uniqueness of complexity of the project. For example, if you are building something that's monumental, very different in your community, then you might want to make sure that the contractor, who might be very good in building warehouse, who might be very good in building something that's very common, but they might not have the knowledge to build something that's more complex. For example, another example would be hospital. All right, special working environment. There might be a lot of the site restrictions, a lot of the site conditions that you would want to make sure that the contractor is qualified to do that. There might be special methodologies required. For example, the foundation might be very different, or the construction method might be very different, might be very advanced. So you want to make sure that they are qualified. concerned about availability of qualified respondents. That's very important because before you put out a project, you don't know how many contractors are qualified or are
Yeah.
interested to participate.
Yeah, Eric, can I interrupt this, John Kodrowski? This is excellent, and I like the conversation on the CCDC 29. I know as part of our presentations on procurement, we've been trying to encourage communities to, step outside the box and start looking at alternative contractors. And the pushback we get saying, well, we don't know who's out there. And the CCDC, if I understand, is a nice document because along with the CCDC 23, the guide to calling bids, it helps, somebody in the community how to do an outreach, how to find other people in neighboring communities, somebody who maybe wants to travel in, maybe, 40 kilometers, 50 kilometers, not that far. So this allows them to, find new people and how to qualify them, correct?
Correct. That's correct. You're absolutely right. The availability of qualified respondents, sometimes not just qualified respondents, sometimes maybe interested respondents. So if they are not interested, they won't even respond to your pre-qualification. So going through the pre-qualification will give you an idea, at least about how many contractors might be submitting a bid. So that's the fourth point that I have. And you're absolutely right, that's very important. The next slide will talk about the different type of pre-qualification as well, because that's very important. I'm just finishing up the last 2 points. One is the product performance, compatibility and warranty requirements, and other special considerations. So if you are doing something that's very common, you don't really need to pre-qualify contractors. I mean, everybody knows how to build a warehouse. So only if you are doing something very special, like building a hospital, building something that's one in a kind, that's very special, museum or a courthouse or something, very different, then you do the pre-qualification. All right. So just to follow up with what I was talking to John about the pre-qualification. So when you do the pre-qualification, there are 3 types of pre-qualifications. The first type is you don't limit the number. Whoever meet your criteria will be on the list, will pass the pre-qualification. That's the first type. The second type is shortlisting. So what it is you specify a certain number, and for example, 3 to 4. So you will only after the pre-qualification process, the top 4 proponents will be invited to bid or submit a proposal, will pass the pre-qualification. So instead of passing mark, you are just limiting it to 3 to 4, or whatever number that you think is appropriate. The reason why the main difference between the unlimited and shortlisting is, for unlimited, it sounds like it's more competition because you didn't limit the number. That means you have more proponents, you have more bidders. So in theory, you will have better price because it's more competitive. However, there's another school of thought or another scenario is some contractors might feel that if I know that there are another 10, 15 construction firms competing with me on this project, the chance for me to get is 5%. I might as well move on and skip this project. So the shortlisting, on the other hand, is to encourage those competent ones, those competitive ones, to submit. If I know that you are going to pre-qualify, inviting only 4 or 5 or 3 contractors to submit the bid, my chance of getting the job instead of 5% now will be 20%. Then I might put in the effort. I might give my best price to try to win it because I know I got a better chance. So that's the pros and cons of unlimited and shortlisting. So when you talk about pre-qualification, be very careful. You need to be very clear in your mind which way you are going. Is it unlimited or is it shortlisting? It's very, very different. The result will be very different as well. The third one is a source listing. The source listing basically is you just do a pre-qualification. You might not actually have a project yet, but you do it, for example, if you have multiple projects in the next 5 years, you just do a pre-qualification, have a vendor list, and that vendor list, whenever in the future, whenever a project come up, you would just invite those on that list to submit a bid. So depending on the size of the project, depending on the organization, I've seen some owners, what they did was instead of asking, for example, if you have a list of 30 vendors that's qualified, that is on your approved list. And whenever there's a meeting, whenever there's a project coming up, you might invite 5 of them. You might invite 5 of them, a kind of rotating. That way you got some competitiveness because you got 30 people always on your list and you become their preferred clients. And on the other hand, you are sure about their qualification. So that's the benefit of source listing. All right. So this is, in a nutshell, CCDC 29. I tried to, I hope I didn't rush it too much. And I'll try to leave some time at the end for questions. Before we do that, then I will turn this over to Mary. She's going to talk about a CCA. CCA has a family of documents, mostly between contractors and subcontractors. But there are some this particular documents I think might be of interest to you. I'll turn this over to Mary.
Yes. Thank you, Eric. Can you guys hear me? Sorry. Yes. Okay. So as Eric touched upon, in an effort to increase collaboration and dialogue with First Nations communities, the Canadian Construction Association prepared the CCA Indigenous Engagement Guide, and it was developed in partnership with Indigenous Works, which was formerly known as the Aboriginal Human Resource Council. So this document was developed to help guide contractors engage more effectively with Indigenous companies and communities. And more specifically, the guide helps construction business owners and managers learn how to build relationships with Indigenous communities. And as well, it also provides knowledge of the cultural, social, political, and legal structures of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit communities, just for additional insights and guidance into Indigenous engagement strategies. So the guide is available on CCA's website for those who are interested. And I know that Eric touched upon the fact that we do have a Q&A portion following the presentation, but as I previously mentioned, if there are any documents or questions that you'd like to discuss in detail, please don't hesitate to reach out to me via email or telephone, and my contact information is on the screen before you. And for those of you that do want to access this CCA Indigenous Engagement Guide, please feel free to email me. I could send you a copy, or if not, it's on our website. Thank you. So I guess we could move on to the Q&A portion of the presentation. I see that there are some questions, so.
Thank you, Mary, and certainly Eric. We want to go over, John, did you want to raise a couple of your points?
Yeah, I got a couple points. So we talk about the pre-qualifications. What are some of does the CCDC documents specifically talk about what the pre-qual should be, such as a shadow of red seal, like, a pre-qualification because you have a truck and a hammer doesn't make you a contractor to pre-qualify. So there's like specific certifications. Does the CCDC suggest what the pre-qual should involve?
Yeah, John, in CCDC 29, there are a large section that we have suggestions in terms of criteria that they could put on. For example, health and safety would be one criteria that is very popular. And we have suggestions as to how to measure those. Even in CCDC 11, we put in the health and safety questions for you to consider. So you as the owner, or you are representing the owner, you decide what's important for your project in terms of pre-qualification. But one thing that you need to keep in mind, though, the more criteria you put in, the more restrictive. That means the pool of bidders would be smaller. So just keep that in mind and try to focusing on something that's really, really important to you. I keep on using the example of warehouse. If you are building a warehouse, do you really need to pre-qualify a contractor? Everybody know how to do a warehouse, I think.
Well,
So, I mean, unless there's any special circumstances or working conditions. But to answer your question, CCDC 29, we have a lot of information in it that would give you ideas what you want to put in. But ultimately, you are the one deciding what's best, what's important for your project.
If I can go to another one, the insurance and bonding. So in my presentation, I talk about risk in construction and the importance of insurance, and how one transfer risks for a project. So if you're doing risk, you can transfer it towards an insurance company or a bonding company. Can you go to a little more on, does the CCDC talk about the importance of bonding of contractors at all, or is it just a checkbox?
It's very interesting. Insurance and surety are very special industry, special area. For CCDC, we have strike a subcommittee, insurance subcommittee and surety subcommittee, and those members are, in addition to the CCDC members, are representatives and advisors from the insurance and surety industry. We met regularly. I just need to tell you this story because we meet in Toronto 3-4 times a year. Why Toronto? Because all the major insurance and bonding companies, their headquarters is in Toronto. And I still remember the first meeting that I attended was in 1993. That was the first meeting that I have engineering background, and as a secretary, I need to take notes. And after an hour and a half meeting, I have no idea what they were talking about. They use so much acronym. Insurance and surety is very, 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 very different. And I don't pretend to be expert. And after all these years, I think I know what the problem is. I don't know the solution, but I know the problem is. To answer your question, CCDC contracts, we specify insurance requirements are the minimum insurance requirements that we believe apply to all construction projects. And Canada is the only country that has standard form or standard insurance provisions. All other contracts like the FIDIC or like the AGC, the American documents, they don't specify the limits on insurance because every project risk management, the risk allocation is very different. You need to have very specific assessment of your project. But in general terms, I dare to say that what's required in CCDC2 is the absolute minimum. And I highly recommend you, if it is any special projects or anything, try to get an insurance advisor, insurance agent. And when I say insurance agent, try to get somebody that has construction insurance, not the family insurance or car insurance. They are very different. Construction insurance, get a good advisor and they would be able to assess the risks to you and advise you what's appropriate. So the one last comment that I want to make on the subject of insurance is insurance is not like you order something, you want this, you want that, and then you buy it from a company. Insurance is just like you go to a car dealership, you look at the parking lot, that's what you have. So take it or go to another one. So
that's very valid. I like that comparison, because one of the challenges in construction has been the substantial increase in cost as a result of COVID. So we know lumber prices, especially in indigenous communities, it's up 60-70%. And so then I guess if you have a CCD contract, and with the substantial increases in cost, who eats that cost if you already have a contractor? Does the contractor have to come back and say, well, you know, lumber has gone up 70%, you need to come back for more? So how is the pandemic impacting the CCD processes?
This is a subject that Mary is very familiar with because she just organized a webinar on this subject.
Yes.
On this subject, she might even be able to provide you with the link for that webinar. It's a very, very good webinar. I highly recommend you. So maybe she can provide you with the link, and then we can share that with the participants. It's a CCA webinar, Canadian Construction Association webinar. Before I turn that over to Mary for her comments, I just want to say, pandemic is something that we never imagined, and I hope that we would never see that again in my life. And so to answer your question, CCDC contracts never envisioned that. So I cannot tell you how the CCDC contract would, which way it goes, because when we drafted, we didn't envision pandemic event. And I bet you anything, most construction contracts would be on the same boat as well.
Yeah.
With that, I turn it over to Mary, and then
Okay.
Yeah. So the CCDC contracts themselves, there are no specific provisions with respect to price escalations. So there are provisions that deal with, you know, changes in other circumstances, but specifically when it comes to prices of materials, that's not dealt with explicitly within the contract. So as you will learn if you watch the webinar, we do, you know, suggest a couple of different ways to deal with price, you know, escalations or you know, changes in prices, and that might be just something as simple as, you know, sitting down with whoever, you know, you're contracting with, and really, you know, trying to maintain the integrity of the relationship between the two of you. So, right. So it could be something just as simple as that, or, you know, it might turn into, you know, I mean, there is the possibility of even disputing, you know, costs on different considerations, such as delays. So, to summarize, essentially, there are no specific provisions with respect to price escalations in the CCDC contracts, but that doesn't mean that they're not, you know, there's no way to deal with them altogether.
So, John, so I mean, that's exactly the situation. I mean, I echo Mary's comments. So I think several things that I think I would like to emphasize on the message. The number one is there are many ways to deal with it in contracts. For example, some contracts have a formula with an index in Ontario that I've seen that before. There's a formula that tied to the living costs or tied to the material index, price index. That's one way to do it. But then the question is, it allows the party to adjust up. What if it's the price go down? So yeah, contractors would love to have a formula that goes up, but I'm not too sure whether they would appreciate it. To have a formula that allow it to be adjusted down. And the other thing, the other challenge, to be honest, is as an owner, how do you know about the material price? The contractor will tell you that when the price goes up, but how do you know that when the price goes down? So that's one challenge. The other method that I've seen people were doing, there was some in Quebec, some owners in Quebec, they have some provisions that allow, for example, when there's a revocability period of 30 days for during the bidding stage, before you accept the contract and before they submit, after they submit the bid, if there's a 30 days period, they allow some price adjustment during that period. And there are other ways to do it. For example, some contractors might make a delay, say it's a delay of the project because you delay this. That's why the project is delayed. That's why I order the material late. That's why there's a price increase. So there are many different ways that you can deal with the contract. Right now, all the standard contract, or I would dare to say most construction contract, do not admission pandemic. And so it's all depending on what your lawyers say about the document and what the judge, most important, what the judge would determine at the end of the day. But our position has always been, CCA's position has always been, let's think outside the contract. Let's do what's reasonable. And number one, for those material actual costs, that should be reimbursed. If you know that it's actual, it's actual. And if there are some consequential ones, then those are the ones that need to be discussed. So as Mary was saying, this is something that, yeah, you could, if you're talking about legal, then deal with it legally. But we would highly encourage everybody to think outside the contract to make it work.
Just another quick question, if I can. How does a person work for tribal council get a copy of the contract? So
yeah, so we
somebody's
don't
doing stipulated pricing, how do they get a copy of what's it section, copy CCDC 29, or like how do they get the physical copy of it?
all the documents are available from our document outlets in every city. We got a long list of document outlets. You don't need to be a member of any associations or anything. If you are a member of, for example, the Edmonton Construction Association or Regina Construction Association or Construction Association of Nova Scotia, if you are a member of them, you might get a member discount, but you don't need to be a member. And as an owner, if you decide to use CCDC contract, you don't need to purchase the contract itself. For example, what you could do is you could ask a copy, sample copy from your contractor, any contractor that you do business with. You can review the terms and conditions. And then when you decided that you want to use CCDC2, you might want to make changes. You do that by supplementary conditions. And in your bid documents, you just say that the contractor, successful contractor, will purchase and prepare the contract for signature. That way, the contractor will purchase a document with you for your signature. And so you don't need to worry about where to buy copyright seal, where to buy the contract and everything. That would be taken care of, but you need to make it very clear in the bid documents that the contractor is responsible for that, then everything would be simple. That's the most common way to do it.
Okay. Okay, Claude, any last thoughts, comments?
I don't see any other questions at this point, but certainly the point of asking questions is open for a few more minutes before we decide to close off here.
Sure. Anyone? Any question?
I think we're not seeing any questions so far. Certainly on behalf of FNNBOA, thank you, Mary and Eric, for your presentation. I think it's been valuable. Certainly, I know the value of it and appreciate it, having worked in both the architectural and certainly the construction side of things in the field. So to me, those documents are key elements of, making the language clear, first off. And second of all, I look at it as a form of risk reduction. It's in pretty plain, we'll call it English language. By the way, are the documents available also in French?
Yes, yeah, in
Right.
both official languages.
Mhm.
So thank you. That's good to know. Much appreciated. I've always looked at them, looking at Mary, thinking about, to me, they tend to be kind of, we'll call it legalese writing.
Yes. I will admit sometimes it confuses even me. So I have a legal background and it's confusing to me, you know, it's probably not the clearest for other people.
No,
I-
I would like to
Go ahead, John.
thank everyone, because I know that this is a challenge for a lot of the communities on, you know, the type of contracts, we've been talking about the importance of pre-quals. So I like these guides as well. So somehow we'll try to get a copy of those guides and send them out to the participants, make them more available. So I'll follow up with both of you how to do that. So.
Sure
Okay,
thing.
great. All right, thanks again, everyone. And so we have another webinar on Monday. Claude, I don't have my list here. What are we doing on Monday?
I'm talking about more of the administration level on estimating and costing. So a little bit of that along with life cycle and risk.
Right, okay. All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
bye.